Well, hey there, guys. Greetings and salutations, and welcome back to the channel for this installment of Open Mic, the show where the mic is open, the floor is yours. What do you want to talk about? That is what we are here to discuss today. Anything that you would like to discuss. Now, of course, on Open Mic, we use Super Chat. So if you want to send in a question for me live, go ahead and use the Super Chat feature and send that all in. It's good to have you guys here tonight. Busy day. Busy day. First of all, I only touched on it for a second today on the show because somebody asked about it. You guys know I'm a sports fan, right? What a great week one of NFL football. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk much about sports today. I'm not. But I mean, what a week one. Even if your team didn't win, and not all my teams won, but what a great week one of NFL football. Like most of the games were all great. A lot of them had these thrilling right down to the wire ends. And yeah, I have a few people in the live chat saying, shouldn't this be an After Dark? You know what? I didn't think about that till about an hour ago. I thought, you know what? I should have just done tonight as an After Dark since it is After Dark, but I set it up as an open mic. So that's the way we're going to do it today. Good to have you guys here. And we're going to get to your questions that you have, and you can send in your questions now, by the way, but we're going to get to those questions in just a second. I wanted to talk about this off the top. So the announcement came out. We talked about it on the John Campea Show a little bit earlier today, that it looks like Shang-Chi director, Destin Daniel Cretton, it looks like he's going to be the director of Spider-Man 4. Now, of course, Marvel loves this guy. He did a phenomenal job on Shang-Chi. I still contend it's the best movie they've done since Endgame. In the post-Endgame MCU, and there have been some really good ones, a couple of really good ones, but I still think to this day that Shang-Chi was the best of the bunch. So he's then worked on Wonder Man. They're done production on that, so I don't know when it's coming out, but he's done production on that. Clearly, they love what he did on that. They did line him up to direct Avengers Kang Dynasty, but then with all the changes they went through, he departed that because it wasn't going to be the movie he was going to direct anymore. And now they've got him doing Spider-Man 4. And I already talked a little bit earlier today about how the fact that I'm torn about that. Like on the one hand, I'm super happy because Spider-Man 4 needs a great director now that John Watts has moved on. John Watts, who did a tremendous job directing the first three Tom Holland Spider-Man films. He does not get enough credit. Hardly anybody ever mentions him. He does not get enough credit. He did a fabulous job on that. Can't wait to see his new George Clooney, Brad Pitt movie Wolves, and I cannot wait to see his Star Wars show, Skeleton Crew, which the trailer for that was the best trailer of D23, in my opinion. But that all aside, Spider-Man 4 needed a really good director, and they absolutely went out and got themselves a good director. Lupa is saying in the live chat, I just hope the fight scenes are great. Listen, Shang-Chi had the best hand-to-hand fight scenes out of any of the MCU films, period. I'm not saying the fight scenes were better than, say, like the airport fight scene in Civil War, which I think is the best action sequence in all of the MCU. But I mean, as far as pure fight choreography goes, chef's kiss. Shang-Chi tops it all, especially the hand-to-hand combat stuff. Best stuff there was. So I have no doubt that Destin is going to bring really great action sequences to Spider-Man 4. The problem is, though, I am a Shang-Chi fan. And I am now pissed. That Destin is no longer... Okay, let me put it this way. That this will, at the very minimum, massively delay Shang-Chi 2. Because I don't think they're going to get another director for Shang-Chi. I could be wrong about that. I'm just guessing. But I don't think they're going to get another director for it because I don't think Destin wants to give up Shang-Chi 2. Which means we're not going to get Shang-Chi until after Secret Wars. We're probably like waiting another minimum 3 to 4 years of that. And so I'm a little bit pissed about that. But anyway, my happiness for Spider-Man 4 and me being pissed off about Shang-Chi 2 aside, it brings up an interesting question. When? when would we get Spider-Man 4? I don't think we'll get it after Secret Wars. So that means it's either going to come before Avengers Doomsday or in between Doomsday and Secret Wars. So either before Doomsday or just after Doomsday, but before Secret Wars. Now, before anybody says, John, there's no possible way that they could possibly get this movie up and running by then. Well, hold on a second. If I go to online, I go to Avengers Doomsday release date, it's May 1st, 2026. Okay? May 1st, 2026. We knew 6 months ago or more when Tom Holland made public statements saying that he and the producers had already started creative meetings about the new Spider-Man. Which means if they're getting the director on board now, they have a script. I don't know that 100% for certain, just to be clear, but I'm just kind of speculating that I think they probably got a script by now. And if they have a script by now, pre-production work, the stuff that doesn't need the director, could have already started. You've already got Tom Holland. If, theoretically speaking, if they could be in production of this movie, like if they could start production by, say, February, if they could have cameras rolling by February, there's no reason, with all the pre-production work that can go into it well ahead of time, they've already had lots of time, they've already got their story together, they were talking about their creative meetings over 6 months ago. There is no reason to believe that they could not have a Spider-Man 4, theoretically, in theaters without rushing or anything like that by March of 2026. That's the thing. Everybody always forgets how much work can be done. Not always is, but can be done prior to the cameras rolling. For all we know, they could already be ass deep in pre-production on this movie. I mean, look, we just simply don't know. All I'm saying is, if they said that they were going to be in production and rolling cameras by February, which is not completely unrealistic. I mean, it's just early September now, October, November, December, January. That's 5 months from now. If they could, then being out by like March of 2026 is not a crazy notion at all. To me, the whole thing about the question about will this come out prior to Doomsday or after Doomsday, it all really depends on what happens in Avengers Doomsday, right? Because look, let's look back at Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, okay? So Infinity War ends and it changes the world. The world of the MCU is changed. Half of all the population has been snapped away. It is a different world now, all that kind of stuff. Now, they had other movies come out that take place in different times, but if you want to do what Marvel normally does, which is tell their movies in sequential order, that's what they normally do. We don't always do it, but that's what they normally do. Then your Spider-Man 4 film would have to be a film that takes place after whatever the consequences of Avengers Doomsday is. Now, if you know the comic book story, and Marvel doesn't necessarily stick to the comic book stories, we know this, but if you know the comic book story, then one theory going around out there, and it makes perfect sense, is that Doomsday ends with Doom creating Battleworld. And then Secret Wars takes place in Battleworld, which would mean that shoehorning in a movie and a story between the events of Doomsday and Secret Wars would be tricky. It would be tricky unless you told it out of sequential order and say, you know, if Spider-Man 4 starts with the final couple of moments of Avengers Doomsday and then the screen goes black, then it says 5 months earlier. And then it tells the story. I mean, you could do that, but if Doomsday, and we don't know that it will, but if Doomsday ends in such a way that like Infinity War ended, where the world is totally changed, then that makes doing a Spider-Man 4 film in between Doomsday and Secret Wars a little problematic. A little bit problematic. At the very least, tricky. Right? At the very least, tricky. So, to me, it would seem to make more sense to have your Spider-Man 4 movie come out prior to Doomsday. Now, again, I acknowledge that could be tight. It all depends on how far along the process they are in their script development and if they've already started pre-production work on it or not. Quite often, we never hear about this stuff until after the fact. I mean, look, I'll say this. If they haven't begun any pre-production work on it and say the script isn't finished, my assumption is it is, but let's say it isn't. If the script isn't finished and they haven't at this point started any pre-production work, I don't know that there's any chance that a Spider-Man 4 can come out prior to Avengers Doomsday coming out. But if they do have a finished script and they have already started some pre-production work, if that's the case, and by the way, we're only finding out now that Destin Daniel Cretton, director of Shang-Chi, is going on to direct Spider-Man 4. It's very conceivable that he's been attached to this movie for the last 3 months. How often do we hear about a casting and then later on find out, oh yeah, I signed the deal 4 months before we made the public announcement that I was cast. Famously, Ben Affleck, he let the world know just a couple of years ago that he had actually signed on to play Batman like 6 months before the news ever broke that he had signed on to play Batman. It's very conceivable that when Destin moved off of Avengers Kang Dynasty, that they immediately said, you know what? We're changing directions with what we're going to do with Avengers. So it's not the movie you were going to do. So how about we move you on to Spider-Man? I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying it is very conceivable. Actually, it would be kind of normal if we find out that Destin had actually already been signed on to do this movie for the last 3 months. I mean, yes, no, maybe, we'll find out. But if he had, again, that increases the chances that we can absolutely get a Spider-Man 4 prior to Doomsday. I think that would be the ideal thing for them to do, all depending, of course, how Doomsday ends. If Doomsday ends in such a way that they fight Doom and they beat Doom and that's the end of the movie, well, then you can do any movie after that you want before Secret Wars. But if Doomsday ends in such a way that sets up Battle World and now the worlds are changed and the incursions are happening and all realities are colliding and all that kind of stuff, well, then it becomes difficult. Anyway, I'm curious to know what you guys think. How do you think they're going to approach this? Do you think they're going to gun, because there's still time, do you think they're going to gun for getting the Spider-Man 4 film out prior to Avengers Doomsday? Or do you think that the more likely scenario is that they have it come out before Secret Wars? You know what? I'm going to put a poll up right now. I'm going to ask you guys what to think. When do you think Spider-Man 4 comes out? Before Doomsday or after Doomsday? All right. For those of you watching live, and the polls are only for those people who are watching live, I just put up the poll. What do you guys think? Who do you think? I mean, when do you think this Spider-Man thing comes out? When do you think they're going to aim for it? When do you think it would make more sense for them to do that? We've got a little over 100 votes already. And it's close. It's really close. Right now, 55% of you are saying after Doomsday. 45% of you are saying before Doomsday. So it's close, but there seem to be more. And now after Doomsday is pulling ahead. Now it's 57% for after, 43% for before. So it looks like it's close, but there is a definitive edge from you guys thinking that it's going to be after Doomsday. We're going to end it at 57% after Doomsday. And that's the winner that you guys have decided, that it will come out after Doomsday. So we'll find out. We'll see here shortly about how they're going to handle that. All right, guys. With that down, Let's get to the real reason we're here, shall we? Which is to take your live comments and questions. Now, before we do that, I'm going to pay some bills. We're going to take a second and thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode of Open Mic, our friends at Manscaped and Mando. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Manscaped. Today, I am thrilled to unveil the latest masterpiece from Manscaped, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra in forged gold. Welcome to the golden era of grooming where precision, luxury, and performance meet. In a world where grooming tools come and go, Manscaped is setting the gold standard with this special edition trimmer. If you want to make your grooming routine a statement of sophistication and style, this is the tool that you need. Just a quick PSA though, there are limited quantities available in this color, so you gotta act fast if you want this. Listen, guys, I know that there are still a lot of you who are trying to do personal grooming the old archaic way like I used to do, using the stupid trimmer on your electric razor or some other archaic tools. Look, if you're gonna do it that way, just rename yourself the Butcher of Balltown. It is time to step into the golden era with the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra Gold. You too can experience unparalleled precision with the next-gen dual skin-safe blade heads, one trimmer blade and one foil blade designed for flawless performance. It's time to join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped for all their grooming needs and get the special edition Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra in forged gold while supplies last. So get 20% off plus free shipping with the code CAMPEA at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code CAMPEA at manscaped.com. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Mando. Guys, I've got to tell you about something that changed my whole body care game. Mando Whole Body Deodorant. Now, I first heard about Mando last year when they offered to become a sponsor of the show, and I was honestly skeptical. I mean, a deodorant can't really control odor for 72 hours, can it? But after using it myself, I am a believer. You can use it anywhere on your body, and I mean anywhere. It's clinically proven to keep you smelling fresh for up to 72 hours without any irritation. I'm loving the clover wood scent, but they've got options like bourbon leather, Mount Fuji, Pro Sport, and even unscented if you prefer to go stealth mode. I like to use it after the shower, before the gym, or even important meetings. It's that reliable. And right now, Mando's got a killer deal. New customers get $5 off their best-selling starter pack with my exclusive code CAMPEA. That's over 40% off. Just go to shopmando, that's shopmando.com, and use the code CAMPEA. Seriously, guys, if you want a deodorant that's aluminum-free, baking soda-free, and just works better than anything else you've tried, it's time to make the switch to Mando. So don't wait. Control body odor anywhere with Mando. Head over to shopmando.com and use the code CAMPEA and get $5 off your starter pack. Trust me, you're going to love it. That's at shopmando.com. Go and check it out now. And thank you to our friends at Mando and Manscaped for sponsoring the John Campea Show YouTube channel. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this stuff, shall we? Your live comments and questions. We're going to start things off here with, and everything got moved around. We are starting with Yang. Yes, we are. All right. So Yang writes, with the success of IO2, I guess you mean Inside Out 2, do you think during the Chapek era that would have gone streaming like other Pixar films? Yes. Bob Chapek, of course, he made many, many bad decisions when he was running Disney. Everything from the ridiculous corporate restructuring, taking away the creative's power, taking away Kevin Feige's power, all that kind of stuff. But one of the big mistakes he made was shitting on animation. He made public comments believing that he made public comments basically saying that he didn't think animation really mattered. He didn't think adults cared about animation. And he kind of flexed that by taking Pixar movies, 3 Pixar movies, and dumping them on Disney Plus, devaluing the Pixar brand and all that kind of stuff. It took Elemental and Inside Out 2 to regain that, prestige that goes along with the brand. So, yes, I think unfortunately, now that's not to say that Bob Chapek maybe couldn't have learned from some of his mistakes and stuff like that, but unfortunately, his attitude towards animation seems pretty clear. And yeah, Inside Out 2 probably would have just ended up on Disney Plus and lost out on $1.6 billion. So that's probably the way that would have gone. All right, let's move on now. Next up, we've got Zachary, who writes, one of two. Hey, John, you're great at crediting sources when they have news, so I'm curious why you didn't mention earlier that the false Spider-Verse rumor was from Jeff Schneider. Respectfully, I think scoopers like him should be called out for being wrong as much as they deserve to be rewarded when right. Well, the main reason I didn't, like, by the way, there was another story we did a couple of weeks ago that was a rumor, because, on the show, sometimes we'll talk about rumors and we always make it clear that, hey, this is a rumor or this is a report. It's not coming from the official source. Take it with a big grain of salt. It may or may not be true. But I think, to me, if it's something that would be fun to talk about, we'll talk about it on the show, right? But I don't really, and maybe I'm right and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't put a high value on making sure I credit the right sources for rumors. Because, quite frankly, a lot of the time the rumors don't turn out to be true, and I don't want to give free airtime to people who put out false rumors. But if they turn out to be real, then later on I try to make sure. Now remember, this was originally reported by so-and-so. Like, I try to make sure I do that. So what happened was there was a rumor story that was going around about a week or two ago, and I won't say which one it was. And I kind of said where I read it, and I got emailed by another outlet that said, hey, just a quick correction. That place you read, they got the story from us. Can you please go on your show and make a correction? And I totally understand why they asked. I do. I completely understand why they asked. But I'm not in the business. First of all, I'm not a news site, right? I'm not a journalist. I'm a pundit. I'm just a fucking nobody in my converted garage who's a movie fan, and I'm just talking about movies. But I don't want to go out of my way to make sure I get accurate sourcing right when it's a rumor. I will later, if the rumor turns out to be real and true. I'll try to make sure to make a mental note to go and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, getting back to the stuff about the Spider-Verse story, because there was a story going around. We talked about it on the John Campea Show today. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more on the John Campea Show again tomorrow, because Lord and Miller have now come out and made public statements. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. There's a story that came out, and the source was Jeff, that they've scrapped a whole bunch of the movie of Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. They're basically going back to square one. I mean, they didn't say we're going back to square one. That's kind of the feel of the story, and that now the movie's at minimum not going to come out until 2027. Well, the composer of all the Spider-Verse films then came out today. This is what we talked about on the John Campea Show earlier, and said, don't believe everything you read on the internet. And now Lord and Miller have come out and said, yeah, that's not true. Okay, fine. To your point of when you say, and let me bring this up again. Respectfully, I think scoopers like him should be called out for being wrong as much as they deserve to be rewarded for being right. See, here's the problem. This is why I am not in the scoop game. All right? This is why I'm not in the scoop game. Don't get me wrong, I have a lot of respect for good scoopers, but I am not in the scoop game. Yeah, 5 times out of the last 7 years, I've broken a scoop, but I mean, like, the scoop business is not an easy business. And here's the thing. One thing I can absolutely guarantee you, 100% I'm going to guarantee you of this. If Jeff Schneider said that, there was all these problems with Spider-Verse and that it may not now come out until at least 2027, I 1000% guarantee you he got told that by reliable people. Jeff Schneider doesn't just come out and just say random bullshit, right? I guarantee you he got told that by somebody he trusts, probably a studio insider and whatever else. And if it didn't turn out to be right, I don't necessarily feel like he needs to be called out because he was just doing his job. Again, he's a scooper. I will never be a scooper. I never want to be a scooper. I don't want to go anywhere near being a scooper. But John, you broke that Keanu Reeves was going to be the voice of Shadow. Yeah, but that was only because I was at CinemaCon and a very high-ranking studio person who was also at CinemaCon at the after party came up to me and face-to-face told me that. That's the only reason I broke that story. That's it. Because I've been burned in the past. I remember when, this is years and years and years ago. I'm forgetting the name of we were just joking on the show that this one actor I always forget the name of. He's the guy who played Riley, Coach Riley in Winning Time, and he won the Oscar for The Pianist. And I'm looking at his face but anyway, guys in the live chat, if you remember who it is, I always forget this actor's name for whatever reason. And Luis has got it, yeah. Adrian Brody, thank you, Patrick. But Luis gets it. Luis remembers this. Way back in the day, when Edgar Wright was getting ready to make his Ant-Man movie, I got told by not one, but two very connected people that Adrian Brody was going to be Edgar Wright's Ant-Man. And so this was my first big scoop. I got on my website. This is back when I was doing the movie blog. I got on my website and I broke the story that Adrian Brody is going to be Ant-Man for Edgar Wright. The next day, I got an email from Edgar Wright saying, no, not true. But listen, I was told, but if I told you who it was reliable people. And I got told, and they were wrong. And I had to eat crow on that. That's what I think that was the experience that made me like, you know what? I'm going to talk about movie news. I ain't going to break movie news. I'm going to analyze movie news. I ain't going to be the one doing the scoops per se. And here's the thing. That happens. That's why I don't give a hell of a lot of credit to the scoopers when they're right, because it's not that they're right. They just happen to get told and the information was correct and they got it. And I'll give credit, but I don't give them too much credit. It's like, oh my God, this person is so great about coming up with the scoops. But these guys get told information, and sometimes the information turns out to be correct and sometimes it turns out that it's wrong. Now, that's why when you got to start looking at track records, Jeff Schneider is often right. He often gets reliable information, and that information often turns out to be right. So his track record is as such that, listen, you got to expect that sometimes he's going to be fed bad information. And by the way, on the John Campea Show, whenever we do bring up a story that was broken by, say, a Jeff Schneider, I always say, take it with a bit of a grain of salt, because often Jeff is right, but sometimes Jeff is wrong. Just because Jeff is the one saying doesn't automatically mean it's right? Do I not say that all the time? Obviously I do. So I don't really feel like when a guy, and there are others like Jeff who I would categorize like this, when somebody who has a good track record as a scooper and is often right, I don't feel like they need to be called out when they're given bad information. Just like I don't think they deserve that much praise when they're right, because they got told that. It's not like they created that news. But I also don't feel like they need to be called out. Now, when it's something that is consistently wrong, when it's coming from sources that are more times than not wrong, then I give them a little bit of a hard time and I'll say, we shouldn't listen to this because they're hardly ever right. But it's all about track record. But that's why I don't agree that they need to be called out when they're wrong, because that means you're giving them the heat for a mistake that somebody else made. And I don't think that's constructive. And yeah, now DJ Vega saying, we don't even know Jeff is 100% wrong yet. Well, the information he was given was wrong, because even Lord and Miller, we're going to talk about this on the John Campea Show tomorrow, but Lord and Miller themselves have come out now and said, yeah, no, that's not true. Everything is moving ahead smoothly. We're totally on course. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But listen, sometimes you're going to get fed wrong information. And you're kind of at the mercy of that. Sometimes you're going to get fed the right information and then you report it and you look good. Sometimes you get fed wrong information and you vet it as good as you can. And he was wrong. Listen, and I'm not just saying that because Jeff is on my show sometimes. It's the truth. It's just sometimes he's wrong, and that's just the way it is. All right. Thanks for the question, though, man. All right. Next up, Astros Tim writes, who could be Feige's eventual successor for Marvel? It could be anybody. My choice, though, my number one pick is somebody who we've never heard of. It should not be a director. It should not be anything like that. Running a studio is different than directing a movie. You know who understands that? James Gunn. That's why James Gunn initially said no. And then when they suggested the idea of doing it with Peter as his co-CEO, that's when he said, okay, then yes, we can do that now. But I don't think it should be anybody famous. I don't think it should be anybody we know. Just like nobody knew who Kevin Feige was before he started running Marvel. Hell, even after he was running Marvel for a while, a lot of people didn't know who Kevin Feige was. That's the kind of person that I hope runs Marvel after Kevin Feige. Now, it'll probably be one of Kevin Feige's main lieutenants because he's got, 2 or 3 people that are high up on the executive producer list of all the Marvel films. It'll probably end up being one of them, but that's what I hope. I don't think it should be, let the Russo brothers run Marvel. Guys, running a massive business is different than being a creative director. And so I hope it's somebody we've never heard of. At least that's my pick right now. All right. Orange Hand writes, there's a scene in Game of Thrones that reveals the fate of the House of the Dragon character. I'm wondering, what do you consider spoilers when it comes to prequels? Here's the thing. I know exactly. We've talked about this on the show before. You're talking about the little speech that Joffrey gives, right? Right? That's the one you're talking about. Here's the thing. There are 2 reasons you shouldn't take that as gospel. Number 1, Joffrey was a bit of an idiot and he could have been wrong. Now, we know what happens in the books, but nothing says they're going to stick to that, so they could deviate from it. Now, I won't say what that thing was that Joffrey reveals to the girl he takes down to the catacombs. I'm not going to say just in case other people don't want to hear it, but just because he said it doesn't make it gospel, because he wasn't a bright kid. He was not a bright kid. Not to mention, you're talking about verbal histories being passed down, and it's something they could deviate from the book. We've seen House of the Dragon deviate from the book in good ways, so they could do that there. So it may be a spoiler, it may not be. But I'm just saying, don't count on what was said in Game of Thrones to be how it actually plays out in House of the Dragon. They might, but don't count on it as being like 100% certain, because it's definitely not. All right. Andy writes, I've watched 6 films that came out in August last month, and 5 of them, Kneecap Dee Dee, Sing Sing, Blink Twice, and Strange Darling, were original films. Look, just make sure there's not a part 2 there. Or there is. Oh, no, it's not. Okay, so, again, there is this, you've heard me talk about this before. There's this constant mantra that's chanted by people who want to look like they know what they're talking about when it comes to movie discussions, and make it look like they're sort of saying, there's no original films in Hollywood anymore. Oh, it's all just remakes and sequels. There's no original films in Hollywood anymore. Guys, that is flat wrong. And this isn't an opinion. This is mathematical, statistical fact. There is more original films made today than at any other time in Hollywood history. More than any other time in Hollywood history. The majority of the movies coming out are original films. The problem is you and I don't go to see them. And that's the thing, right? Tons and tons and tons of original films come out every single month. Oh, nobody makes original films anymore. Yes, they do. You're just the goober who only goes see when the newest Marvel film comes out. Don't talk about, just like in the discussion. Here's what I found. Like, we had this discussion recently. You know how Blue-Eyed Samurai just won the Emmy Award for Best Animated Show, beating out X-Men 97. 100% the right decision. 100% Blue-Eyed Samurai was 100% better than X-Men 97. And I say this as somebody who loved X-Men 97. I stayed up till midnight every time a new episode dropped, and I watched every episode of X-Men 97, but it was nowhere near as good as Blue-Eyed Samurai. And I finally pushed a couple of people on, no, X-Men 97 deserved to win. And I finally pushed them a bit. Did you watch Blue-Eyed Samurai? Well, no, but X-Men 97 should have won. It's like, guys, but that's the same thing about this whole thing about, original film. And says, oh, people only ever makes it. Like, no, they don't. Look, and then every time I open up a release calendar and I go down original, sequel, original, remake, original, sequel, original, like every time. And it just, so yes, guys, please do me a favor. Whenever you're involved with other movie fans in online discussions and you hear one of these people who try to make themselves look like they're smart by saying, oh, they don't make anything original anymore, saying, that's actually factually wrong. That is objectively, statistically, mathematically wrong. They make tons of original films, tons of them. And it's just that a lot of them don't get the appreciation they deserve. All right. Anyway, next up, Andy writes in again, 1 of 3. Okay. Andy writes, I know you don't do politics on your show and instead focus on how entertainment affects us. John Oliver did a segment on the Supreme Court where he offered $1 million a year. Yes, I remember this. I saw this one to Judge Clarence Thomas. Offered $1 million a year until he or the judge dies, and an RV to a Supreme Court justice, that was Clarence Thomas, if he resigned, and apparently it's all legal. It was completely legal. And part of the joke that John Oliver made was that it absolutely should not be legal, but it totally is, which is part of the point he was making, is that something like that shouldn't be legal, but it was. If that judge had accepted the offer, now expired, would you have covered this on the John Campea Show? No. As this would have been entertainment affecting us through a change in our judicial system. No, it wouldn't have been. Look, I will sometimes touch on political issues that actually have a direct impact on the movies we get to see or don't see, right? Like, I don't care about TMZ nonsense. But we did talk about the Jonathan Majors drama when it was going on, because that was going to have a direct impact on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is a huge deal around movie discussion circles. It had a direct impact on whether or not we were going to get Avengers Kang Dynasty, or if we we're going to continue to get this guy playing this role. It was an absolute direct connection. If Justice Thomas had accepted John Oliver's offer of $1 million a year to step down from the Supreme Court, which he totally should. But anyway, no, we would not have covered that on the John Campea Show, because that has nothing to do with movies. That has no impact on the movies that do get made or don't get made, or that, I mean, listen, if Clarence Thomas stepping down from the Supreme Court would have canceled Shang-Chi 2, then yes, we would have talked about it. But clearly it would not have affected Shang-Chi 2. So no, we did not. So Sir Malmston is saying, Thomas is a minority. Why does he get picked on? Well, the thing is, he gets picked on because, I mean, you'd have to watch a John Oliver episode, because he rules on cases that involve his very rich friends who publicly give him a lot of money and gifts, and also ruling on refuse to recuse himself from a case, like step off of a case and let the other justices handle, that his own wife was involved in. That clearly ethics say he should have recused himself from that, but he said, nah, the fact that my wife's involved in this case is fine. That sort of stuff is unethical, shouldn't have happened. And so, you know, the point John Oliver was trying to make in that little thing was that, hey, if people can give you things and give you money to influence what you do, then I will offer you $1 million and a brand new RV, because Clarence Thomas likes his RVs. I like RVs too, so I kind of relate with him on that. And a lot of people don't know that. I'm actually really big into RVs, even though I don't own one. I'm actually really big. I'm constantly looking at YouTube videos on RVs, so I can appreciate that about Clarence Thomas, actually. So anyway, John Oliver offered him $1 million plus a giant $1 million RV if he were to step down from the Supreme Court, which again was totally legal. And the whole point John Oliver was making was that it shouldn't be legal for him to do that, but it is. So he's kind of pointing out the ridiculousness of the way the laws work. Anyway, so there's all that. Okay. Let's move on here, shall we? But again, to plainly answer the question, no, we would not have covered it on the show because it has no impact. It's not an entertainment show. So yeah, there's that. All right. Any more than I would have expected Sports Center on ESPN to cover it, because what does that have to do with football? Nothing, right? So there you go. All right. But thanks for the question, Andy. AC23 writes, John, I can't recommend Slow Horses enough. Great show. I hear nothing but great things about that show. At some point, I'm going to sit down and watch it. I totally am. Gary Oldman, that's all you need to tell me. Gary Oldman, that's all you need to tell me. So I will watch it at some point. But thank you for the recommendation, AC. Next up, Super Nintendo Chalmers writes, hello, John. One of my favorite James Earl Jones moments was in a Simpsons episode where he read The Raven. Listen. You know, it's funny. We were just talking about The Simpsons, me and Ann and our buddy Ryan. We were just driving back from a restaurant last night. And I don't know how, but The Simpsons came up and we were all talking about, like, I haven't seen an episode of The Simpsons in like 12 years. I love The Simpsons, but I haven't watched an episode in like 12 years. So there's a lot of episodes of The Simpsons I've never watched, but now I'm going to have to go and look that up. All right. Thanks for that, Super Nintendo. Appreciate that, man. Next up, AC23 writes in again, John, I feel like I'm missing something with Dune. I absolutely appreciate the filmmaking, but the story and the mythology I struggle to connect with. AC, here's a very, very important thing to understand. Movies are subjective. Movies are art. They're also a business, but they're art at their core. And art hits all of us in different ways. A song may make one person smile and another person break down and weep. Neither is right or wrong. It's just that each one of them, with their own unique personalities and their own unique backgrounds, that song is going to hit both of them in a different way. Neither is right, neither is wrong. No movie is for everyone. And if there's, say, a beloved set of movies like Dune, if it doesn't quite connect with you and you don't quite appreciate it, that doesn't mean there's a problem with you. That doesn't mean you're missing something. It just means that Dune, as a piece of art, the way it's created, doesn't impact you the same way it might impact the person next to you. It's not your job, AC. It's not your job to make sure you find a way to like this movie. No. It just didn't connect with you the way it connects with other people. And guess what? There's going to be movies that you connect with that may not connect with others. That's the subjectivity of art. That's the way it works. That's the beautiful thing about art. It connects with all of us on different levels and in different ways. And so what I would say to you, AC, is that if Dune doesn't connect with you, then just go, okay, that one doesn't connect with me, and move on to another movie. It's not up to you to find a way to like it. If it doesn't connect with you, doesn't connect with you, nothing wrong with that. All right. Next up, Casual Hamburger says, force yourself to like Rebel Moon. Yep. Nope. That ain't ever going to happen. All right. Next up, we've got Johnny Weiner, who writes, so John, when you retired YouTube, you probably didn't mean to say retired. You mean retire. So John, when you retire from YouTube, I might join too. You're the only one I listen to and not as toxic as almost every YouTuber. There are some, but they are not you. It seems fandom are not what they used to be. Listen, I'm not going to lie. I say this all the time. I will say it to this day. Fandom, particularly online fandom, lost its greatest champion when John Schnepp died. The term King of the Sweaties wasn't just a cute nickname for John. He truly was the greatest cheerleader and the greatest advocate for healthy film fandom. He had no time for certain people's bullshit. He had no time for people dragging their politics of hatred and whatever into movie discussion. He had no time for any of that stuff. He loved the movies they loved on their own merit and hated the movies he hated on their own merit, and totally loved and respected everybody who liked or disliked things even he had the opposite opinions on. He was the greatest advocate and the greatest champion for online, healthy, right, and good film fandom. There are some people like me and a few others that try our best to carry on that legacy of his, but we'll never be him. Not on that level. Not in terms of being a true advocate for healthy film fandom. He was the guy. And I honestly believe that when he died, I'm trying to think of a good movie analogy. Like, think of a good sci-fi or fantasy film that when like a certain character dies, the barrier holding back the darkness breaks down and the darkness can come through. I feel kind of that way, like when John Schnepp died, that it opened up a dark portal to a very dark corner of the internet underworld that unleashed the poisonous, toxic, cancerous kind of film fandom that we see very prevalent today. And that's just one of the reasons, amongst many, many others, that I wish the big man was still around. I honestly think film fandom would be a healthier place today if John Schnepp was still here. I really do. Because he would have some choice fucking words for those certain cancerous corners of film fandom, but he's not. And nobody has really been able to step up, certainly not me, to take that place of the king of the sweaties that John Schnepp was. And no one's come close. And it really sucks. But, you know, there are a lot of great people on YouTube. And I've always believed there are more good people than bad. And eventually, and in the long run, like, here's the thing. I talked about this a lot. When I look at a lot of the trends I see that's happening in like YouTube, like a lot of people have co-opted the movie fan space as another venue to bring their toxic political agendas into. Movies with black people, women being in something. Anyway, there's a lot of very dark elements out there that have co-opted movie fandom as yet another avenue to bring in their toxic political agendas. And we've always said it's like the light side and the dark side of the force. The dark side, like hate videos and rage bait and all that kind of stuff, that's easy. You get more clicks with hate videos. You get more clicks with rage bait. I've lamented on my own channel before that, you know, I'm really disheartened by the fact that I can put out 15 videos in a week and like that I think are really good, 15, 20 videos in a week that I think are really good and really sharp. But inevitably, if there's one video that's a more negative one, because we're all going to have like negative thoughts about certain movie stories. My job, I believe, is to make sure that always the majority of the videos on the front page of my YouTube channel are positive about things we love, about things we celebrate, about things that we're optimistic about. But every once in a while, there's going to be things that are negative. It's going to happen. Like if we're reviewing Madam Web or something like that, right? Anyway, it's always breaks my heart when I go through my analytics and I see that inevitably, even if I put out 20 really good videos in a week, the video that's going to get the most views is usually the negative one. And I'm not going to avoid doing the odd negative one because that's me being honest and that's me, you know, being, you know, what you see is what you get. And I always give my true thoughts and feelings on things. And that means 1 out of every 5, 1 out of every 7, 1 out of every 10 of those videos, it's going to be about something I don't like and that I'm upset about. It's disheartening to see that those are the videos that get more clicks than anywhere else. Now, of course, so I recognize the temptation of Ooh, then I should do more angry videos. Ooh, you know what got a lot of attention? When I gave my review, when I gave my bad review, because I thought it was a bad movie, when I gave my bad review to Acolyte, or I gave a bad review to Madam Web. Ooh, you know what I should do? I should make 6 more Madam Web videos. Yeah. I should do 6 more Madam Web videos about how Madam Web sucks in this way. And then another video about how Madam Web sucks in that way. And then another video about how Madam Web sucks in that way. So I get it. I get that temptation. But, you know, I just hope and believe that when I do retire, and that there are always going to be more upcoming YouTubers and stuff like that that do things the right way, that are like, hey, let's talk about the things we like. Let's talk about the things we love. Let's celebrate our love of fandom. Let's celebrate our love of movies. And that means sometimes there's going to be negative things to talk about, but let's not make the hate videos and the rage bait. Let's not make that our North Star. Let's celebration of the things we love be our North Star. Let's make sure that at least 75, 80% of the videos that we're making are about celebrating what we like and celebrating success or expressing optimism about what's coming. I just always believe there's going to be more of that. So anyway, that's just kind of my thought on that. All right. Anyway, next up, we got AC again, who writes in, I just started university. Good on you, man. I'm in a business media program. Nice. Hoping to be a producer. Film made me feel, and I hope to provide that same feeling to others. You know what? There's 2 different reasons why that's great. Number one, that you're in university. Good on you. I also love that you are specifically studying to be a producer. Everybody dreams about being an actor or a director or some a writer. It's very rare that we hear people say, I dream of being a producer, because often producers who are the most responsible for getting movies made, producers are often the unsung people. Yes, every once in a while, somebody like a Kevin Feige gets elevated, but quite often you don't know the names of producers. Right? But they are absolutely vital to the movie making process. And I love hearing that you're specifically studying and want to be a producer. I think that's awesome and good on you for that, man. All right. Next up, Brody Weaver writes, it's refreshing clicking on a live stream that isn't discussing politics. It's exhausting. I suspect especially tonight. Because there was obviously the presidential debate was tonight. So yeah, thought I'd throw this one here just to mix it up a little bit for you. So there's something a little bit different. Thanks for that, Brody. All right, next up. Sam Sughart writes, there was rumors of Kingpin and Daredevil being in Spider-Man 4. I never heard such rumors. With Fisk being Mayor Born Again and Matt being in No Way Home, even if they aren't big characters, I think them appearing isn't too out there. Look, I'll say this. I think it is possible that they're in there, but I think it's highly unlikely. While there were other problems, I'm acknowledging that up front, okay? There were other problems. But Marvel realized taking their TV characters and trying to make them feature characters in the movieverse didn't work out so well when they made the Marvels. And I think there were several reasons that movie didn't work as well. And by the way, I didn't mind the Marvels. I didn't think it was anywhere near as good as many of the other Marvel films, but I mean, I honestly didn't mind the Marvels. I thought the Marvels was okay. I thought the Marvels were okay. It was certainly better than Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and several others. But anyway, I thought the Marvels was okay, but it tanked. I mean, it bombed at the box office, and there were several reasons for that. But one of them was the fact, and we talked about this before the movie came out, right? We talked about this ad nauseum before that movie ever came out. They took Disney Plus characters Photon and Ms. Marvel that a lot of people have never seen and never heard of because they don't have Disney Plus, and then just put them in a feature film and treated the audience like the audience should just know who they are. Because I remember, I mentioned this a lot too. I talked to a friend of mine who'd never seen Ms. Marvel, never saw WandaVision, so they didn't know who Photon was. And they were like, watching the trailers, I feel like I'm supposed to know who those two are. Because you can introduce new characters in a movie, right? But you don't feel like you're already supposed to know who they are. The way they marketed it, and again, we talked about this a ton before the movie ever came out. The way they marketed the Marvels, it totally felt like everybody was supposed to know who these two characters are that they've never seen before. And that hurt the movie. Again, it's not the only reason it struggled at the box office, but it was one of them. So I think, and right now, Daredevil, and I don't mean this as a diminutive thing, but Daredevil is a TV character. Yes, he had a quick little cute cameo in Spider-Man No Way Home, but he was not a major figure in the movie. I really don't think at all they're going to make Daredevil. And by the way, I could be wrong. I don't know this for a fact. I'm just speculating as a fan like anybody else. Okay. But to me, it seems like there would be no chance that they would take Disney Plus characters and make them focal characters in a feature film. I just don't see them doing it. Now you can say, well, Sam's getting a Captain America 4. Yeah, but Sam didn't start on Disney Plus. Sam got his start in movies. So again, I'm not saying they shouldn't or anything. I just don't see them doing that. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't see them taking TV characters that a lot of the general movie-going audience hasn't watched. And by the way, they put Kingpin in Echo, and how did Echo turn out? Certainly didn't help the ratings of Echo having Kingpin in it. So I really don't think so. Again, I'm just guessing. I'm not basing that on any information. I'm just guessing, but I really don't think we're going to see Daredevil or Kingpin other than maybe quick cameos the way Matt did a quick cameo in No Way Home. But other than that, I don't see them being significant characters there. All right. Next up, thanks for the question, Sam. Appreciate that, man. Next up, Liam Thomas writes, Rings of Power thoughts after episode 4. Thanks. I finally watched episode 4 today. Here's the thing. You guys know that I was very disappointed in Rings of Power season 1. All right. It just bad dialogue, bad filmmaking, scenes that didn't need to be there at all. And the scenes that did have relevant stuff happening seemed to drag and were kind of meandered and were kind of direct. Anyway, so season 1 of Rings of Power was a disappointment to me. I didn't hate it, but it was a disappointment to me. Season 2, though, the first 3 episodes, while I was not ready to say, oh, this is a good show now, I didn't say that, but the first 3 episodes were a definite improvement. Still had a lot of room to grow, but definite improvement over season 1. Definite improvement over season 1. Now, because of traveling and busyness and all that kind of stuff, I hadn't watched episode 4 until today. I really quite liked episode 4. I really quite liked episode 4. I think it's my favorite of the 4 episodes so far. Even though it didn't have my favorite character in it, which was Durin, the dwarf, and his dad and his wife. Those are my favorite characters in the show. So even though it didn't have my favorite characters in it, I thought this was the best episode so far. I'm also a big Tom Bombadil guy. I've always loved Tom Bombadil, so I loved having him in there. But yeah, I gotta say, it could still go south very, very quickly. But for now, I am starting to regain my optimism for Rings of Power. Again, I'm not ready to now proclaim Rings of Power season 2 is good. I'm not there yet. but it's definitely heading in that direction. If they can just finish out this season the way the first 4 episodes have started, I'm at the very least not going to end this season disappointed like I was with season 1. I'll be satisfied. I'll be satisfied. So maybe it'll get better as it goes. Maybe it'll get worse. Don't know. But so far, I gotta say, I'm liking what I'm watching, which is a big difference from my watching experience of season 1. All right. And the fanboy in the live chat absolutely saying we need Elrond and Durin together. 100%. And because we know where Elrond is heading right now, and I think Durin is there, I think they're going to have a reunion there when they get there, hopefully. But you're right. The Rings of Power works at its best when Elrond and Durin are together. That to me is when the show fires on all cylinders. All right, next up. We got Abe 10 Alpha, who sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Abe. Appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for the support. Who writes, hey, John, love your show and especially all the viewer questions. Thank you so much. I love the viewer questions as well. What is the worst, Madam Web or the pathetic excuse of a football team, the Carolina Panthers? Okay, I'm just... It's only week 1. It's only week 1. Okay? I want to remind you that last year, in week 1, the first game of the NFL season last year was the Detroit Lions versus the Kansas City Chiefs. You know who won that game? The Detroit Lions. The Kansas City Chiefs lost the first game of the season. You know who won the Super Bowl that year? The Kansas City Chiefs. Look, am I saying the Carolina Panthers are going to come back and they're going to win the Super Bowl this year? No. What I am saying is wait until at least week 4 or 5 to get a general assessment about where the team is at. See how the offseason moves impacted it. I'm just saying, don't give up all hope yet. Don't give up all hope just yet, Abe. I mean, they may end up being terrible. Hell, I thought the New England Patriots were going to be the worst team in the league this year. I really did. They look all right. So anyway, give the Panthers a few more weeks, Abe. Hang in there, brother. Hang in there. All right. Let's see here. I now got to reset. By the way, guys, I'm now going to turn off the super chats because I don't want to be on here all night. So I'm going to turn off the super chats now. Wait, it's not letting me turn off the super chats. What's going on here? Give me a second here. Turn off super chats. It's literally not letting me turn. What is happening? Oh, there we go. Now, hold on a second. This is acting really weird. This is acting very, very weird. The YouTube interface right now is acting very, very weird. Let me try this again. Okay, now it seems to be working. And nope. It still won't let me turn off super chats. Let me try that again. And now it's let me turn off super chats. Okay. I don't know why that was such an ordeal to get through. Okay. Let's get back over to your questions here, shall we? Let's see. We are going to pick things up here with, that was Abe. We now go over to Elias, who writes, speaking of Spider-Man 4, will Sony ever give Marvel Spider-Man back? And will we see Venom versus Spider-Man again? No. Look, if you were Sony, would you give Spider-Man back? No. Obviously you wouldn't. You would be an idiot to give it back. You put up good money, right? You put up good money to get the rights to it. And so they're your rights. It's yours now. At least for now. So here's what I've always contended. I remember about 4 or 5 years ago, we got into this big argument and debate that, oh, no, all it's going to take is, Marvel to make the right bid. I said, yes, of course there's a dollar amount that Marvel could offer Sony that would make Sony go, well, sure, here, take Spider-Man back. But Spider-Man is not worth what Marvel would have to offer to get the rights back. That's the thing. right? That's the thing. Like, it reminds me of like sports fans who go, man, our team sucks. You know who we should get? LeBron James. Why doesn't our team get LeBron James? Go get LeBron James. Well, okay, that's great, but they're not going to give us LeBron James, and we don't have the pieces to trade for him that they would take. Would Marvel like to have Spider-Man back? Yes, but I said at the time, Marvel is not going to be... Look, there's a dollar amount that Sony would accept, but Marvel ain't going to want to pay that amount. And so if you're Sony and you can just sit back and make money off this character, you do it. Hell, you even made it, if you were Sony, you even made it better for yourself by making a new deal with Marvel where they'll make the movies for you. I'm sorry, but Sony played Marvel like a fiddle on that deal. Sony totally screwed Marvel on that deal. Sony totally won that deal. Because they're like, okay, so we keep the rights to Spider-Man and you'll make the movies for us. And we get to keep the rights. Sounds good to us. Sony totally fleeced Marvel on that deal. Now, Marvel got what they wanted. Kevin Feige got what he wanted out of that, of course, which was he wanted to have Spider-Man in his Marvel Cinematic Universe. So he got it. So that's important. But the price tag of that was Sony still gets to keep it, but now we're not even the ones who have to make the movies. But we'll still get to be the distributors, and we get to decide where the movies get released and how they get released and control those movies when they're made. So let me get this straight. We keep the rights to the character. You'll make the movies for us, but we control the movie once you make it. Sounds pretty good. And so, yeah, man, Sony totally fleeced Marvel on that. But again, Marvel knew what they wanted. They wanted Spider-Man in the cinematic universe. And they got it. Right? And Sony got what they wanted, more than what they wanted. So you can make an argument that while Sony totally fleeced Marvel on that deal, both sides kind of won because they got what they, at the end of the day, they got what they wanted. All right. The reason I say all that is because, let me ask you again, understanding that you still have the character, Marvel will make the movies for you, and then once Marvel makes the movie, you are in control of those movies. Would you give Spider-Man back? No, you would not. Neither would I. You know why you and I wouldn't give Spider-Man back? Because we're not idiots. Now, when Marvel decides that they're willing to pay $5 billion to just acquire all the rights back, because I believe $5 billion will do it. Sony will give it up for $5 billion. Sure, but there's no way they're going to put up that much money for Spider-Man. There's no way. They get to have Spider-Man in their cinematic universe right now without paying Sony more money. So, look, will it happen eventually? Yeah, probably. It'll probably happen eventually. But don't count on it happening anytime soon. Well, John, what if Craven flops? Then Craven flops. It won't matter. Sony will just crank out another one to keep the rights. Because Craven can flop. That's fine. You know why it's fine? Because Destin Daniel Cretton is about to direct a Spider-Man 4 that's going to make Sony 5 times the money that they lose on Craven. And then Marvel will make a Spider-Man 5 that'll make 5 times the money that they might have lost on Morbius. And then Marvel will make a Spider-Man 6 that will make Sony 5 times the money that they lost on Madam Web. It's fine. It's fine. So yeah, no, I don't expect them to change hands anytime soon, unless, of course, Sony fleeces Marvel again and gets Marvel to overpay to get Spider-Man back. But, you know, we'll see. So eventually, sure, but not anytime soon. All right, next up. Isaac Cushman writes, and sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Isaac. Appreciate that very much, man. Isaac writes, I just wanted to drop a recommendation in 2015's Rudderless. Well, I was going to say that's William H. Macy's, right? William H. Macy's directorial debut. It's a drama starring Billy Crudup and the late, great Anton Yelkin about people finding joy in music in the face of grief. You know what? I never watched that. I never did see it. Which is weird because I'm a big William H. Macy fan. And I remember when hearing about that movie, I got excited about it, but I never did watch it. I never saw it. And you know what? I completely forgot about it as well. So thank you for putting that on the radar. And I will take you up on that recommendation, Isaac. And again, Isaac, thank you so much for supporting us on that level. That was very generous of you. Really appreciate that, dude. All right. Next up, Tevin writes, since Beyond the Spider-Verse was pushed for a while, by the way, it doesn't look like it was, do you think the original release date given was actually possible at the release of Across the Spider-Verse? Yes. Okay, so the original release date was, I think, May of 2024. I think that was the original release date for Beyond the Spider-Verse. Anyway, could that have been hit? Yes, could have. But there was a lot of things stacked against it. Obviously, there was all that turmoil about the animators on the second one. That was going to cause problems. Then, of course, there was the whole thing about the writer's strike and director's strike. That upheaved everything. The whole industry shut down again and blah, 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 blah. So now the question will become, when are we going to get it? Not really sure at this point. Oh, Michael Pinedo and a couple of others in the live chat are saying it was March of 2024. I think I said May. March of 2024 is when it was originally supposed to come out. So I think it could have made that release date, but probably unlikely. Possible, yes. Unlikely, definitely. So it probably would have been delayed from that anyway. But again, as long as I just hope it comes out in sometime in 2025. I do expect this. They always come with updates to CinemaCon. And hell, it's September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. We're just 7 months away from the next CinemaCon. I expect, if nothing else, we'll probably get some kind of significant update, if not before CinemaCon, then at least at CinemaCon. So we'll find out. All right. Thanks a lot for that, Tevin. Next up, we get Sam Sughart, who writes, Kingsman, Nemesis, Kick-Ass, and Wanted are in the same universe. Mark Millar made a 2024 comic crossover series called The Big Game. Doesn't matter. I mean, so ultimately, here's the thing. You can say they're in the same universe. That's fine. But they don't have any impact on each other whatsoever. So I mean, look, you can say that Toy Story and The Sopranos happen in the same universe. Okay. Doesn't mean anything. Like, unless you say Tony goes into his closet one day and pulls out an old box and he opens it up and goes, oh my gosh, my old Buzz Lightyear. I totally forgot I had him. You know, hey, pussy, look at what I found, right? It doesn't really mean anything. Kind of reminded me, like, at the end of Argyle, when for those of you who didn't see Argyle, and by the way, don't bother seeing Argyle if you haven't already, because it's not good. But at the end credit scene in Argyle, there's a Kingsman crossover. It didn't mean anything. It had no impact on the movie whatsoever. So that's cool that they can say these all happen in the same universe. Okay. So does Toy Story and Sopranos. It doesn't mean anything. So unless there has some meaningful impact, then it's just words, right? It's just words. All right. Thanks for that, Sam. Next up, we got Jedediah Elias, who writes, likelihood Joker 2 makes 1 billion again. I've always said I don't believe it. I've said from day one that I don't believe Joker 2 was going to make $1 billion. First felt more like a product of its time. Plus, state of DCU isn't in good standing before Superman. Yeah, but you could make the argument too that the state of the DCU wasn't all that great when the first Joker came out. Look, the first Joker came out and it was a perfect storm of things and it caught a lot of people's imagination. It was lightning in a bottle. It was a great movie. I loved it at any rate. Not everybody did, but I did. I thought it was fabulous. And it went on to make $1 billion. But I've said this whole, like long before, first reviews, I've been saying this for a long time. Joker 2 is not going to make $1 billion. Because while I loved it, there's a lot of people that the first Joker didn't work for them. And whereas they went to go see the first one, I think there's a lot of people who went to go see the first one that aren't going to go back to see the second one. I am. Maybe you are. But I really do believe that there's going to be a good percentage of people who did see the first one that are not going to go back to see the second one because it didn't work for everybody. And because of that, I don't think it's going to hit that same note. I don't think it's going to hit the $1 billion mark. Now, can Joker 2 be successful? Yes. I think it can be a big success. Can it make money? Yes. The threshold of success and profitability is not $1 billion. That's the $1 billion mark is way above. So will it be a success? Yes. Will it make money? Yes. Will it be $1 billion film? I've said right from day one that no, it will not. I mean, I hope it is. I hope it's great and I hope it makes $1 billion and maybe it will, but I just don't see it happening. All right. Next up, Tevin writes, I've been meaning to ask, what was your first reaction to Deadpool saying, keep Canada out of your mouth in the first scene of Deadpool? Hilarious. Well, he didn't say, just to be clear, Deadpool did not say, keep Canada out of your mouth. He said, keep my country out of your mouth. Right? So he didn't say keep Canada out of your mouth because the guy says it's the only good thing to ever come out of Canada. And then he spikes him through the face with his sword and say, keep my country's name out of your mouth. A little bit of a play on the Will Smith thing from the Oscars, granted, but still. I laughed my ass off. Look, but in all the Deadpool movies, in any Ryan Reynolds movie, I tend to laugh my ass off whenever he does. Listen, the great thing about Ryan Reynolds, to me, is there are a lot of great, amazing Canadian talent in Hollywood. Ryan Gosling, Rachel McAdams, it goes on and on and on. There's a ton of great Canadian actors out there. What I love about Ryan Reynolds, and why I like Ryan so much, besides the fact that I am a big fan of his, but I mean, why I like Ryan so much is he is very explicitly a proud Canadian. Good Canadian kid, man. I love that. I absolutely love that. That makes me a fan of his forever. He never hesitates to bring up that he's Canadian. He brings up all the Canadianisms. I love that about him because I'm a very proud Canadian. And I love that Ryan is too. So whenever he brings it up, and I lived in Saskatoon for a while. And so in the first film, when he says, here comes Wade Wilson from Regina, Saskatchewan, and Regina's right beside Saskatoon, from Regina for Saskatchewan, right? He just laughed my ass off. Even like later on in the movie, after he says that, when they cut to the void, you see the CN Tower, which is of course the Toronto skyline. You see the CN Tower in the background. Ryan always finds a way to get his Canadianness in there, and I love that. I just do, because I'm Canadian. So, we all connect to that stuff. But I laughed my ass off, Tevin. I laughed my ass off. All right, next up. And our final question of the evening comes to us from Benimus Prime, who writes, John, there's an advanced screening of Transformers on Saturday. Are you going to go? Also, where's your hype for it at? So, yes, we've been talking about this on the John Campea Show. For those of you who don't know, there are nationwide advanced fan screenings of Transformers 1. And we snatched up our tickets for that immediately. So yeah, we're definitely going to go see it on Saturday. Definitely keep your eyes open for out of theater reaction for that. Very excited about it. My excitement has gotten bigger and bigger. Listen, they showed us the first previews of Transformers 1 at CinemaCon back in April. Now, I had said for a long time before that, another Transformers animated movie? I don't know. Doesn't seem like the best idea, especially since you're still doing the quote-unquote live action ones. And it's Peter isn't doing the voice of Optimus anymore. I mean, I love Chris Hemsworth, but it's not Peter. And then they showed us the previews for it at CinemaCon. And I had to go, wait a minute. This looks pretty good. And then they dropped the first trailer for it about a month later. And like everybody online was like, oh, this doesn't look very good and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, guys, okay, it wasn't the best trailer, but they haven't shown you what they showed us at CinemaCon yet. I trust me, I think this could be good. Anyway, then they put out a new trailer for it that was much better and people seemed to get a little bit more excited for it. Then it played at that big animation festival and the reviews coming out of that were really good. The responses to that festival screening was really, really good. And listen, I'm not saying this, I have the same hype level as I do for like Moana 2 or Deadpool or anything like that. But I gotta say, I'm legitimately excited for this movie now. I'm legitimately excited for this. And like, I'm not expecting it to be the best animated film of the year. Like, I don't think it's going to be better than Wild Robot. I don't think it's going to be better than, Inside Out 2, but I have gone from, guys, I don't know if you should be making this movie to, yeah, dude, I'm legit excited to see it. And, I think it's going to be good. Maybe yes, maybe no. We'll find out. And anyway, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Thank you so much for being here and making this little show a part of your evening. Next time we do it this late, we'll make it after dark. Guys, big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those questions, particularly a couple of you guys who sent like $20 super chat. Thank you so much for your generosity and supporting our channel at that level. Because number one, you gave us fun things to talk about, but number two, you supported this channel and we thank you guys so much. Everybody who works on our channel, thank you guys so much for your support. Don't forget, guys, to come back and join us tomorrow. I'm going to give you a little preview. You know what? I'm going to give you guys who stuck around a little bit of a bonus here. Going to give you a little bit of a bonus. First of all, I give you a little bit of a preview on a couple of things we're going to talk about on tomorrow's John Campea Show. There's going to be others, but Colin Farrell says he doesn't know he's going to come back for Penguin Season 2 because he didn't like the experience. He loves the show, but we'll talk about it a little bit. Apparently that Josh Brolin rumor turned out to be true and he's turned down the role of Green Lantern. We're going to talk about a Spider-Verse producer coming out and directly saying that the rumor about Spider-Verse being delayed doesn't happen. The ratings for Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power are starting to go up again because they started pretty low at the beginning of season 2, but they've started to go up again because it's better than it was in season 1. So those are just a couple of things that we're going to talk about tomorrow. Also, I'm going to let you guys know this too. Yeah, this is something I should be doing in a members town hall, but I'll let you guys know this. So, you know what? No. I'm going to sit on this. I'm going to sit on this one. But anyway, I give you a little sneak peek on some of the stuff we're going to talk about tomorrow. We're going to be talking about this. Fanboy saying Ian McKellen and Gollum may be split into 2 films now. No. It was always said that Andy Serkis was working on multiple films. This isn't new. They're not splitting it into 2 films. Right from the first time we reported on this, it said it was going to be multiple films. So anyway, there's that. All right. Guys, that'll do it for me for now. Thanks a lot for being here. And until tomorrow, my friends, bye-bye.